What's going on, Lions fans? Welcome to the Pride of Detroit YouTube channel. My name is Miko, one of the lead content creators over here on the Pride of Detroit YouTube channel. And in today's video, we are going to be talking about the Lions. And in today's video, we are going to be talking about the Lions' most recent win over the Indianapolis Colts and pushing their record to 10-1 on the season and now winning 9 games straight. Now, the Lions had a very, very tough game in this matchup against the Colts, despite what the score may look like. Obviously, with the Lions winning 24-6, it may look very lopsided. In some ways, it was, but it was a very, very hard-fought game. The offense, while did put up over 300 yards of offense on the day, did not look as polished, I think, as is probably the word that I should probably use in this situation, as we're used to seeing them be. Jared Goff still was pretty effective, 26 of 36 for 269 yards. Jahmyr Gibbs having a big day on the ground with 21 carries for 90 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. And Jameson Williams leading the way in terms of receiving with 5 receptions for 64 yards. So again, a very, very good day for the offense. But I would say that on today, this was much again about the defense really having a standout performance because, like I said, this wasn't a game where we saw the Lions kind of run up and down the field offensively like we did last week against the Jacksonville Jaguars. The offense had its moments where it looked very fluid and looked very much like the offense we're accustomed to seeing. And it also had these moments where it kind of stalled out. It had, again, they put up 14 points in the second quarter, 7 points in the third quarter, and then only 3 points in the fourth quarter. No points in the first quarter at all. And so, again, not as prolific as we're used to seeing, which is perfectly fine because this is something that I think is very, like, what we should very much expect from this Lions teams in terms of finding different ways to win. They don't have to blow out every single team that they play against, even if it's a team like the Colts that you may feel like, hey, they should, this is another team that should hang up, 30, 40, 50 points. It's not very much the case. Morgan and I did our film breakdown early this week and talked about how the Colts are a much better team than their record indicates. Obviously, they are now falling to 5-7 on the season. But when you start to look at the talent that they have on that defense side of the football, it was very, very aggressive. And it very much, I think, was a challenge for the Lions for much of this game. Primarily with, again, how physical they were being. It was very, very similar to how we saw the Houston Texans play the Lions a couple weeks ago. Now, the biggest takeaway that I do have from this game, and again, Morgan and I will probably get into it even more in detail tomorrow when we start talking about the game and talking about talking points, is just the number of injuries that the Lions racked up in this game. This level of physicality is not one of those games that the Lions walked away with and not feel it. They had a number of guys go down and not come back into these games, and some guys that did return later in the game. First and foremost, Khalif Raymond left later in the second half with a foot injury. There currently is no timetable as far as how long he will be out, but with the Lions playing this Thursday against the Chicago Bears for Thanksgiving, it's something to kind of monitor. Once he went out, the punt return duties did go over to Amon-Ra St. Brown, who did a fine job in that role. I don't expect him to have that role come Thanksgiving. I do think the Lions will probably try to find or elevate someone from either the practice squad or something like that to take on those responsibilities in the event that Khalif Raymond can't go. Another player that was injured on the offensive side but did return was Taylor Decker. Taylor Decker seemed to suffer what was, I think, categorized at the time was a knee injury. He missed one play, came back in, seemed to be fine for the rest of the game, but it will be something to monitor, again, on a short week if he's ready to go, which is going to be a big deal because, again, despite how poorly the Chicago Bears have been playing this year, and they're in a tough battle right now as I'm recording this against the Minnesota Vikings, we do know they have a very good front four, with Montez Sweat being one of their key pass rushers. So having Taylor Decker would be a huge benefit for this Lions team. So hopefully the injury that he sustained is not something that will linger or keep him out this Thursday. Another injury that did occur once again on the offensive side was David Montgomery. Monty left again in the second half with a shoulder injury, didn't seem to return for the game, but there were reports that he was back on the sideline with his pads, with his helmet. I think this is probably a little bit of the Lions playing it cautious because of that short week. But again, somebody to monitor, again, with such a short week, how much work does he get in a week of preparation for the Bears? I would expect it to be very, very limited as they try to keep him as fresh as possible for this next NFC North matchup. And then flipping to the defensive side, they went into this game without Terrion Arnold, who sustained a groin injury late in the week before the game against the Colts. But they also lost Carlton Davis in this game to a knee injury as well, someone else who did not return in the second half of this game, which again made this a little scary at times. But again, it kind of speaks to how well coached this defense has been under Aaron Glenn, because even with Kendall Vildor and Khalil Dorsey as your outside corners, the Lions defense still didn't let up a touchdown, 6 points given up off of 2 field goals. So it's a really good performance by AG's group. But again, considering the fact that you're going to have the Bears coming in here on Thursday, considering you have the Chicago Bears coming in here with a very similar passing attack as the Indianapolis Colts, but with a much more accurate quarterback, it is something that I think the Lions are going to have to contend with. Will Terrion Arnold be able to go? Is his injury, again, not going to be overly limiting? How much time is Carlton Davis going to need before he's ready? But it's also worth mentioning Emmanuel Mosley was activated off of IR this week. So again, maybe he just needed a couple more days to get up to speed, but it would be interesting to see if he is someone that they try to put out there in the event that either Carlton Davis or Terrion Arnold can't go as well. Because again, while the defense didn't give up any touchdowns, Kendall Vildor did not look at his best in this matchup. There were a number of times where he was beat deep on routes by either Alec Pierce or Michael Pittman Jr. I believe even Josh Downs got him in one. So like there were a number of matchups that just didn't go his way. And so if you're the Lions, you would very much love to have either Terrion Arnold or Carlton Davis, or ideally both, to have to deal with the likes of DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, and Rome Odunze. Like, that's a very talented pass catching group that you would love to be able to have your best corners available, so that you're not having to, again, put guys out there on islands. Even though you do have 2 of the best safeties in the NFL, when you talk about Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch, they can't be everywhere. So it's something to really keep an eye on, again, as we lead up to the Bears matchup on Thanksgiving. Now, with the injury news out of the way, let's talk about, again, like I said, a very somewhat limited offensive performance by the Detroit Lions. Like I said, I think Jahmyr Gibbs is by far the bright spot of this day. He had a number of high quality runs, basically on the outside, breaking those out for bigger gains. And then again, finding the end zone twice on these types of stretch type plays where he's just able to utilize his speed and be able to beat defenders to the corner and be able to get into the end zone. This has been a very, very great year for Jahmyr. And especially in a game where he wasn't able to just kind of rotate carries off with David Montgomery. Again, getting 21 carries, still being able to average, I think, about 4.3 yards per carry. Great day for Jahmyr, all in all. And I think, again, if it's something that if you go into this week without having David Montgomery, you at least feel confident in Jahmyr being able to carry that heavier load. Not that you needed this game to prove that. He's proven that even last year that he's more than capable. But you also still have Craig Reynolds, you have Sione Vaki that can also spell him for a couple plays here and there. Also, while also getting like Amon-Ra St. Brown or J-Mo involved in the run game as well. There's plenty of things that the Lions can do to subsidize their run game in the event that David Montgomery is not able to go this week. But I'm sure he's going to want to play, seeing as it is his former team. Now, one thing I do want to say, going back to the defense, and I think, like I said, I think the defense should be the talking point of this day. Whenever you have a unit that is already missing some pieces, like we know of in Aiden Hutchinson and Alex Anzalone, but then you also go into it without your second best corner, and then you lose your CB1 in the course of the game, and still able to hold the opposing team out of the end zone and still be able to create quality pressure and still be able to just, again, impact the game in such a huge way. I think that is a huge testament to how much better this defense is going to be and why this team is continuing to win. And it really does allow for a buffer in a day where, again, like your offense maybe not performing at its best, you're still able to come out with a 2 to 3 score win just because of how dominant your defense was able to be, being able to, get 3 and outs. The Colts were I believe 3 for 12 on third down in today's game. Yes, they did put up 268 yards, but again, held under 100 yards rushing. And a lot of the passing yards they got were on some big plays, which unfortunately Kendall Vildor was on the receiving end of a lot of those types of targets. So it's something that I think we're not going to see a whole lot of once we start seeing the Lions get their normal corners out there playing in a game. And hopefully, again, we can see that this Thursday on Thanksgiving against the Chicago Bears and having Terrion Arnold and Carlton Davis, because I think in a game like with the Bears, they are definitely going to be trying to chuck the football all over the place because they have such talented pass catchers. But you're going to want to have your best corners out there, and you're going to want this defensive line to continue to play really well. I think Aleem McNeil had a really big game, being able to force a fumble on Anthony Richardson. Levi Onwuzurike had a really good, pass rush and got a good hit on Anthony Richardson that was nearly a fumble as well, but was basically ruled an incomplete pass. Zadarius Smith has been great since adding him. And I also thought Josh Paschal had a really good game up front as well, being able to create a lot of pressure. He had one play where he was being double teamed by 2 tight ends, was able to bowl over one of them and draw a holding penalty on the other. Paschal's has just been absolutely amazing since coming back from, like, I think he was dealing with a shoulder issue or something like that. So he's been really good since he came back. I also thought Jack Campbell had a really good game, stepping in for Alexander Zaloni, taking on much more responsibility in the middle. I think he had a really good game in terms of just playing sideline to sideline, making tackles, and even playing, somewhat stingy in pass coverage as well. Definitely trying to get into some of those throwing lanes, being able to tip a pass here and there. So I think all in all, I think the Lions are trending in the right direction, continuing to win. 9 wins on, like, a 9-game win streak is nothing to just kind of scoff at. They are playing such good football, and it's going to be interesting to see how it continues to trend on a short week. This is the first time the Lions are going to have this quick turnaround, and they're not, again, at 100%. So what do you do if you're, Dan Campbell and the rest of this coaching staff? How do you get these guys the proper rest and get them properly prepared to be able to play against a really hungry Chicago Bears team that, like I said, is currently in an overtime battle against the Minnesota Vikings and still trying to fight and prove that they deserve to be in contention at least for a wild card spot. So it's going to be a really interesting week. But I think, again, the biggest takeaways from today is that this team is just continuing to show why they are the best team in football and why they are a complete team, probably the most complete team in football, and being able to complement each other in so many different ways, whether it's through injury, through just poor play, or whatever the case may be. So with that said, that's pretty much going to do it for today's video. Morgan and I will be back tomorrow to give a deeper dive into this game and talk about another set of talking points, but also giving that look ahead to the Chicago Bears, because like I said, short week, so a lot of things are going to get sped up this week in terms of content. So definitely make sure you're subscribed to the Pride of Detroit YouTube channel. Make sure you've hit that notification bell, because you are not going to want to miss when we start dropping those videos, as well as being tuned in to when we decide to go live as well, because I know Jeremy and the guys will be doing that as well. Like I said, schedule's going to be a little crazy, so make sure you're logged into the Pride of Detroit YouTube channel for all of that content. Also, make sure you are checking out prideofdetroit.com, because there are going to be new articles uploaded all the time, especially for injury news, because like I said, as this week kind of goes on, if you want to stay up to date on who's likely going to be playing this Thursday, you're going to want to check out prideofdetroit.com to get all of that news. So with all that said, I'm Miko. Thank you guys for taking the time to watch, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.